Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube. My name is Chinyere and today I am going to be sharing a story time, trying as much as possible not to sound like your biology school teacher. But I feel like this is a very important topic for us to discuss because especially in this day and age where we as young ladies are exposed to a ton of risk factors that sometimes we're not even aware of. I remember how back in the day I would go through the internet trying to find out if there are ladies like myself within and outside my race going through the kind of symptoms that I was facing with this disease, and trying to find out what form of remedies or treatments were out there that I could choose from. So today I'm going to be talking about my fibroid story. If this is the kind of video that you think you'll enjoy, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button as it helps my videos to be seen in the YouTube space. Also, leave a comment down below and subscribe to my channel. Please let us get to 10,000 subscribers. It's high time already. So in the comment section, I beg you, do not come there and tell me about how you know about somebody that lives in Timbuktu that could offer you some form of concussions or treatments with their phone numbers, because I'll be deleting those things as soon as I see them. Considering I've gone through this disease myself and I had to take a lot of time to get to the point of choosing the form of treatment that I eventually chose, I feel that everybody should be allowed to explore whatever form of treatment they want to, because I think there's some form of attack on people who decide to go the line of surgery. My first diagnosis of fibroid was in my mid-20s. I just graduated from the university at the time. Thankfully, I started to work my first job as an intern radiographer. So I was working in the hospital and I started to make friends with doctors, of course, amongst whom one of them was a radiologist. So the radiologists are the doctors that work in the diagnostic imaging department. One day I went to work, so I asked him to please do an ultrasound scan for me. I mean, it was free, first of all, so why not? And I was young, I just wanted to see what exactly was happening in my uterus, more just being inquisitive, you know. At the time I wasn't even sexually active, but I just wanted to know what my pelvis could look like. So he decided to scan me. Once he was done, he made a statement which I don't think he should have done as a medical practitioner, but being that we were friends, he kind of felt comfortable enough to have this kind of conversation with me. So he just said that if I was in a relationship, if I plan to have kids, that I should start doing it as soon as possible so that I do not get to experience infertility, as he could find some fibroids in my uterus. And I know that for some people, seeing fibroids in their uterus is like a death sentence. It's like, oh my God, I'm going to have infertility issues, you know. But I wasn't too worried because I felt I wasn't even in a relationship enough to advance to marriage. So I got to see my results, and the results read that the most significant fibroid at the time was less than 1 centimeter. It was degenerating, meaning that it was losing blood, and then meaning that it was dying off. So it was also calcified, meaning that it was covered with some calcium elements, so it was really hard. And then it was at the anterior fundus of my uterus, and it was also pedunculated, so I could kind of feel the fibroid a little bit, but it wasn't too obvious because I was really skinny, so I could feel stuff in my pelvis when I lie down on my back. But I wasn't having any symptoms, you know. I was still very asymptomatic. I didn't have heavy flow with my periods. I didn't have menstrual cramps, so life was beautiful, you know. 5 to 6 years down the line, I get married. My husband and I were not in a hurry to start having kids. And I wasn't on any form of contraceptives either, so it was, if it happens, fine. If it doesn't happen, we're good, you know. We had done long distance dating. He was living in Ireland, I lived in Nigeria, so this was now our chance to date in marriage and just, you know, travel the world as much as we could before children come to, yeah, do what they do. So I started to work this job that had some terms and conditions in the contract. Thankfully, yeah, it was a hospital, but somehow the terms and conditions, one of the terms and conditions on the contract that I'd received was that in my first 2 years working here, if I got pregnant, I wasn't going to be paid any form of maternity allowance. So somewhere at the back of my mind, I kind of did not want to get pregnant, even though I wasn't on any form of contraceptives, but it was more or less like I mean, I still want to be getting my maternity pay if I was going to be at home. So it was like, okay, let's see how exactly we can play this game with sense. So I started to try the gynecological services of the hospital. Thankfully, I could see a consultant free of charge. And so I went out to one. He eventually sent me off for an ultrasound scan with a GP. So the GP scanned me and sent a report. The report read that at the time, the fibroids were now about 4 to 5 in number, the largest one measuring about 4.1 centimeter in size. So I started to become asymptomatic. So that's kind of like why I also was getting worried, because at the time I was now experiencing like some form of constipation, bloating. I was also having a heavy flow and some clots, yeah, once in a while. Painful bowel movements. And if you've watched my video, if you've been following me in the past, you remember one video where I was talking about where I used to sleep when I go to the office, which is so unprofessional. But it was the fibroids that were doing this to me, because I became very anemic. I was losing a lot of blood, and it used to make me very tired whenever I went into work, especially on the first day of my second day of my period. And somehow I did not like taking pain relief, because I felt that my body was made to go through this kind of pain. I'm a woman, so I'll just go to the office and be a total wreck. Anyways, the years kept on going by. I stopped taking milk because I felt, okay, milk was kind of causing this bloating. The fibroids were still there. Of course, when I get to lie down, it was now becoming very obvious whenever I tried to palpate around my uterus that the fibroids were changing. So we decided to start seeing doctors officially, my husband and I, especially because now we have been married for 3 years, to just see what exactly they will get to say to us, you know, about having kids and if we're not doing the right thing at the time. So we were sent off. First of all, I mean, the doctors that we had a chat with were more or less just saying, keep trying, keep having more sex, like we're not doing that already. Travel the world, you know, like, you know, explore more. You guys should not be in a hurry. The fibroids don't look like they're a problem. We think that you should just give yourself some more time. So we're sent off for some investigations. I was sent off for pelvic ultrasound scans, blood tests for progesterone, follicle stimulating hormone, as well as AMH. All my levels were good. Chris also was sent for some semen analysis. And I think I was also sent for, yeah, I got to do like 2 to 3 MRIs. Thankfully, the hospital I was working with allowed me to do them free of charge, because MRIs can be so expensive, you know, just to know the location of the fibroids and what they were now looking like with an MRI machine, which gives like a different view from what the pelvic ultrasound will show you. And then I was also sent off to do the HSG, which, to be honest, guys, I was so scared before I went in for that HSG, because somehow I remembered what HSGs were like when I was in Nigeria, and I remember how we used to use a lot of metals to do HSGs, clipping the clitoris of the women, and God, I was so scared to go through the entire procedure. But somehow I think HSGs have kind of advanced over the years. Now they use more of plastic for the procedures, so it's not as painful or as gruesome as it used to be back in the day. To be honest, my experience with HSG was smooth sailing. I did not feel any form of pain, so yeah, it's not as bad as people talk about it sometimes. So once the surgery, once those investigations were done, they got to find some subserosal and intramural fibroids in my uterus. So like I said, they were now becoming more symptomatic, and I was beginning to get worried about this fibroids. It was no longer even about having kids for me. It was now like, please, can we solve this problem of this fibroids? Because I feel like even if I conceive, a child will not be able to stay in this uterus because the place just feels like it is really bulky. In 2019, I remember in January, the particular episode that finally got me to the point where I was now ready to explore the option of surgeries. Because before now, my doctor had actually suggested that if I was too worried, then we could go ahead and take out the fibroids, but he just doesn't think that the fibroids are a problem. But I think the particular episode that led me to think that it was time for me to now explore surgery was early 2019, when I didn't see my period for like 2 to 3 days. I started to think that I was pregnant because I was really bloated. And then I started to take pictures of myself. I sent it to my sister. basically telling her that I think I'm pregnant. You know, I haven't seen my period and I'm feeling bloated. I don't know what this is. I think like 2 to 3 days afterwards my period came, and it was such a heavy flow that it came with. So I mean, before then I'd always had like PMS, and my PMS was so bad that my periods used to scare me so much. A week before my periods, I mean, if I didn't have my pain relief at this point, I was a total mess. You know, I couldn't function as a human being. So I called my sister, I told her, and then my period got to show, and it was so heavy. I had to rush into the accident and emergency department to report that I felt I was having a miscarriage. Like, they should test me. I don't know what this is. Like, this one that is flowing now, I don't know why exactly I'm flowing this way. And at this point I used to wear like 3 pads. I would line up like 3 pads and also wear a tampon. So it was really bad, you know, like nobody should be doing that to themselves. But somehow I just felt that my periods were kind of advancing, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I probably should have acted different before then. I mean, I'd done a couple of things before that time, like using castor oil pads, you know, trying to change my diet, trying to change my lifestyle. I wasn't exactly strict on changing my diet. I think the main thing I was staying away from was milk, because I noticed that whenever I take like milk, I will bloat up a lot. So I had to cut off on milk, ice cream. I wasn't taking stuff like that. My sugar, I cut down on a lot of things, you know, like trying as much as possible to just stick to carbs, which is still sugar on its own, but I was also still eating meat and chicken, stuff like that. So after this particular episode that I had where I had to be rushed into the hospital, I called my doctor and I was like, it's time for us to see. We need to have a chat, you know, like this is getting serious. So I went in to see my doctor. He was talking about IVF. I was like, see, this is not about having kids any longer. I'm tired, you know, like let's deal with these fibroids first of all. So he said that, okay, it's time for us to start talking about surgeries, but that I will have to be on a waiting list, which might be for months, you know. I mean, I was fine with that. I wasn't still in a hurry because I still felt we could still conceive somehow, you know. So I started to try out some holistic approach. I'll go for acupuncture sessions. I remember that I went for like 5 months. Being that I'm a very squeamish person when it comes to needles, I was quite surprised that I could actually stay through my acupuncture needling sessions and sleep. But I mean, it was quite an interesting experience that I got to learn about myself when it comes to needling and stuff like that. I done drinking celery juice, especially in the mornings before breakfast on a clear stomach. I drank a couple of concoctions. I remember my mother even sent me one called Ruzu Bitters from Nigeria. I mean, she was only trying to do her best and show that, you know, whatever form of help that she could render to me, she wanted to offer at the time. So I'd gone through a couple of concoction drinking and things like that until when 2020 in August, my surgery day finally came, and it was time for me to go in for that surgery. Of course, before surgery, I tried to have a conversation with my doctor to see like if we could consider other options like laparoscopy, but he said that because of the size and the numbers of the fibroid that he could see, I wasn't a candidate for laparoscopy. And then I was also considering like, okay, what of embolization, where they get to cut off or tie up the blood supply to the fibroid so that they get to shrink. But he said because I still wanted to have kids and I was still young, it wasn't an option that he was going to be offering to me. So we had to go the whole way of doing the myomectomy, which is like a cesarean section. Basically, they get to cut you transversely to bring out the fibroids. I was quite skeptical about it because first of all, I was like, they're going to now, you know, lacerate my skin and cause all these scars, and I still wanted to enjoy my nice skin, you know, for a couple of years. But somehow my doctor was reassuring me that it wasn't going to be as bad as I thought. So the surgery day came in 2020 and I eventually went in for it.
It's waking up. Open your eye now.
Yeah, you too.
This is our friend Anna. Say hi, Anna.
a 2-hour surgery. I remember about 8 fibroids were taken out. The thing about this surgery was, first of all, my fibroids, the biggest one was probably about 5 centimeter, 5 point something, which is not too big. I mean, the doctors kept on telling me that I could still conceive with the fibroids that they could see, but the major problem was the fibroids were now clustered together in one area of my uterus. So when you get to measure the cluster, it was coming up to like 10 centimeter or more with the clusters that they were seeing, because there were still other small ones around, you know. So it was time for me to have surgery anyways, and I eventually went in for it. So 8 fibroids were taken out of my uterus, and then a catheter was inserted, which was glorious because I didn't have to pee in the toilet for the first day. And then I also had a blood drain inserted to my side. What else was done? Yeah, the surgery was very successful. Afterwards, they came like through the 5 days that I was in the hospital to inject my thigh with some to stop blood from clotting. So every morning the doctors would come to inject, or the nurse would come to inject my thigh. I think I paid about 420 euro, which was like 70 euros per night, between 420 to 480, I can't remember, but it was like 70 euros per night of me being in the hospital for the 5 nights that I was there before I got discharged. After it was done, I was discharged, I went home, and in like 2 weeks I was fine, moving around, you know, and just back to my regular self. Of course, I had to be careful not to tear my muscles any further, so I couldn't carry anything heavy for the first 2 weeks, or at least for some time, until when I healed properly. And then I got to have another visit to the doctor just to find out like what exactly was happening afterwards, and when my period eventually was going to be coming up. So my period came back, thankfully, a month after, so I did not have any problem looking for my period afterwards. But when the period came back, I noticed that the flow was now very normal. I wasn't having the heavy flow where I had to be wearing like 2 to 3 pads any longer, or a tampon. And I stopped wearing tampons because the acupuncture lady that I was seeing, she advised me that tampons are not exactly the best, because instead of the blood to be coming out, it's going back and you can expose yourself to some form of infection. She was just like, I should just stop wearing tampons, you know. So I stopped wearing tampons, and thankfully, like I said, my flow was now very normal, but the pain was still very obvious, you know. In fact, this time around, the pain was like 3 times the normal pain I was experiencing. And I remember I started to get worried. I will go through the internet, and at some point I started to diagnose that myself with endometriosis. You know, I had just given up to faith at the time. And something I did not know about fibroid surgery was, once they are done, sometimes they don't exactly take off all the fibroids, especially depending on the location of the fibroids. So when I'd finished my surgery, about 5 months down the line, I went to Nigeria, and somehow, being that Nigeria, I could just walk into a hospital, you know, and request an ultrasound scan for myself. I was able to do that. So they scanned me and just told me that he could see some fibroids there, which was very disappointing, because I kind of thought that with myomectomies, they take out all the fibroids, but I got to learn that they don't exactly do that. And somehow I was kind of worried to go down the line of an open myomectomy, because having had the experience of working in Nigeria, I remember that some ladies will have those surgeries, and somewhere along the line they will not see their periods afterwards. You know, their periods will just cease, or they start to experience some form of fibrosis because of some complications that can come up from surgeries like that. So it was something that made me quite skeptical to go down to toe the line of the surgeries for a very long time. But thankfully, my surgery was very successful, even though I still had the painful periods afterwards. So I think it's just important for you to be aware of this kind of things that can arise after surgeries of this sort, because it's not a 100% remedy or 100% treatment for you for fibroids. But for me, it was the line that I went. After the surgery anyway, of course, you're told that the fibroids can regenerate, so you have to be aware of those kind of things. I had to change my diet, and this time around I was now very strict to my diet. I stuck to a diet which I still believe up until this day was one of the reasons why your girl is currently pregnant. And yeah, it's just one of those things that I feel I have gone through in life that will be important for me to share here for anybody who might just be wondering how exactly they can go about seeking treatment for themselves. And of course, since I got pregnant, I am not seeing my period. I'm not looking for my period. I don't know where the period is gone to, and I'm not worried about where my period is gone to right now. So yeah, that's my story in a nutshell, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this video today. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you on my next one. Until next time, take care of yourselves, guys. Goodbye.